And one of the more bigger headlines that has come around the past couple of days is that Russell Wilson got cut by the Denver Broncos. Now, it was very expected. We all knew it was going to happen at some point. But here it is. The inevitable has arisen. I don't know what it is.
You're good with a rose.
Arose. And here we are. Now Russell Wilson is about to be a free agent. They haven't officially done it, but they just let him know it will happen. So Russ is a free agent. He's still obviously good enough to be a starting quarterback, and there are a lot of open jobs right now in the NFL. Where do you think Russ is going to end up for this upcoming season?
Where I think he ends up, it's going to be in the AFC, and I think it's a battle between the Steelers and the Patriots.
Ooh,
I
that's
think
interesting.
I think the Patriots would be a good team for him to go to
Mm-hmm.
because they also have the third pick in the
Mm-hmm.
draft.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're smart, you you pull the trigger for Russ and you get Drake May and you have Drake May learn from Russ.
Hmm. Yeah, that's not a bad call. I didn't think too much about the Patriots, but I think that's a possibility. There are so many openings right now. I mean, the Commanders, the Falcons, the Raiders, the Steelers, the Patriots. Like there are so many openings right now in the NFL for a quarterback. But my thinking lies that I think Russell Wilson is still good enough to be a good starting quarterback on a team that has contention hopes. Like I think he can play on a team and lead a team to the playoffs still. I think the Broncos was kind of a weird and messy situation. Wasn't the best for him in his career. So I do think I'm not judging Russell Wilson off of his Broncos tenure because that was pretty ugly. Now, one team that I think could really use Russ, and I think this is a team that is close to contention, maybe a quarterback away, not from a Super Bowl contender, but from being taken more seriously.
I have
What?
an idea I think I know exactly where you're going.
Maybe. So I think that we could see Russ go to his, I guess, AFC West rival, but not anymore though, the Raiders. I think we could see Russ go to the Raiders. I think with obviously one of the biggest flaws of the Raiders is their defense. Their defense is not very good. Their line's good. Their line's okay with Crosby, but their secondary is not great. So I mean, if they can go out and grab Russell Wilson, and it sounds like he's going to take a cheap deal. I mean, that's what it sounds like. He probably is willing to take a cheap deal for a contender. So Russ goes out to the Raiders. He's a quarterback for Devontae Adams, and I think maybe you grab a couple pieces in the draft, pick up a defensive piece here or there, and then you have yourself a decently solid team with Antonio Pierce as your head coach now. I mean, I think that's a very, very real possibility.
That's an interesting idea, and I mean, that definitely wasn't the place I was gonna suggest, or I thought you were gonna go, but I think it's interesting that he would stay in the same division,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes sense because he's familiar with it. I mean, he played a couple seasons in Denver, and he knows the Chargers, he knows the Chiefs, and what he would know the Broncos essentially because he played for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And getting a legit weapon, like, because the Broncos really didn't have offensive firepower like that.
Mm-mm.
And to immediately have a arguably the best receiver in the league, and the argument that Devontae is the best receiver in the league is still a valid one. You give
Mm-hmm.
him that off rip, I think I can see that. I can
Mm-hmm.
definitely see that happen.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a possibility. Now, you could make the argument that if he wouldn't want to stay in the AFC West because it's a good division now. I mean, obviously the Chiefs are Super Bowl champs, but the
It's a
Chargers.
bloodbath.
Yeah, well, the Chargers now should be a lot better with Jim Harbaugh. You'd expect. So the AFC West, I mean, that's 4 difficult games already on your schedule automatically if
Mhm.
you're quarterbacking the Raiders. So I can see, and the Broncos don't have a terrible defense, but I do think that could be a possibility if somebody's thinking, well, AFC West, he probably wouldn't want to get out of there. Another team that we talked about, it was thrown around in our group chat or whatever, is the Atlanta Falcons. I
I was
mean,
expecting that.
that's probably the biggest team. I feel like people are wondering who's going to quarterback it next year because they have weapons with Kyle Pitts and Drake London and Bijan Robinson. They have guys there that are just, they weren't being utilized correctly under Arthur Smith, obviously, but with a quarterback, they could be utilized correctly. And I feel like a Russell Wilson type guy is a quarterback who would thrive in that offense with those weapons. You think that's a possible situation for him?
I do, and I mean it makes it a lot easier because Atlanta plays in the dome, so they don't have to deal with weather. The NFC
Mm-hmm.
South is pretty bad if we're going to be completely honest. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what Carolina stinks. Um, what the New Orleans Saints are good, but I feel like they're a very regular season team.
Yeah.
And what the Bucks are good, and I mean
Mm-hmm.
Baker. I assume Baker stays in Tampa Bay, and that's going to make them viable for the future.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that if he went to Atlanta, I think Atlanta becomes a serious team. And I heard that Calvin
Mm-hmm.
Ridley might go back to Atlanta. So if Calvin Ridley goes
Ooh.
back to Atlanta with Russell Wilson,
Shoot. I didn't think
that's a
about
team.
that. I heard some reports that Ridley might leave Jacksonville, but I didn't think about him going back to Atlanta. Dang, that would actually be pretty crazy if Russ was with that would oh man, the Falcons have weapons, dude. Like they're super solid. They have a bunch of guys and they just
They're
obviously they weren't being utilized correctly, but if you have a quarterback like Russ,
they're literally a
gee.
quarterback away from at least like contending. And it's not like and the move to the NFC makes life a lot easier because the NFC is definitely not as strong as the AFC, and the quarterback play disparity between the two is nuts. Like you look like the top five, you can make the argument that the top five best quarterbacks are all in the AFC. You can make that
100%.
arg You can make that argument.
Yeah.
You're thinking about it right now.
Yeah, I was just trying to think. Mahomes, my top five would be Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar, and probably CJ Stroud. So
You could th
they're all in the
you could throw
AFC.
Herbert.
You could put, yeah, you could put Herbert's probably my number six, maybe even
You can
Rogers
probably
seven.
Aaron Rodgers 7. That's 7
Yeah,
quarterbacks. 8 would be Trevor Lawrence.
there you could probably maybe go
You
to a
can
Brock Purdy or a Jalen Hurts. I don't know, Kirk
I
Cousins,
mean,
Jared Goff,
the argument
but
can be made. Like
it can
that's
be made.
they're at least 5 deep better quarterbacks in the AFC.
You're right,
At least
100%.
5.
Yeah, so him going to the NFC would make sense. It's obviously a lot easier in the NFC. The road to the Super Bowl is a lot easier. The competition is a lot easier. Real fast, this is a
Exactly.
little off topic, but since we were talking about the Falcons, there's one thing I did want to bring up. One guy that I if Russ doesn't end up going to the Falcons, this has been set in my head for like months now, who I want to quarterback the Atlanta Falcons. Do you know who I'm thinking of?
Is it Kirk Cousins?
No, it's not. I
That's
want Trey
surprising.
Lance. I want Trey Lance to
I
quarterback the Atlanta Falcons this year. I want him
we
to.
just we just gotta let it go. Let it go.
No, no, no.
Just
I
let
know
it
this is a
go.
little off, but I'm gonna go off for a couple seconds here. I think. Listen. Okay. I was talking to somebody about this literally on Monday, yesterday, and he said the same thing. He said, "When are you gonna stop?" That's what he told me, and I said, "I'll stop when he gets a normal opportunity to quarterback a team. That's when I'll stop. And if he proves to me that he is not good, because I'm not sitting here saying he's going to be good. I just really want to see how good he can be. And I think in an offense like Atlanta's with the guys around him, I think he can thrive there. So if Russ doesn't end up going to the Falcons or Kirk Cousins or whatever doesn't end up going to the Falcons, man, I want Trey Lance to get his chance there because I think that's where he could thrive.
I think it's a good I mean, that's cool. I
Mhm.
did read something on Twitter where there was potential if Kirk Cousins leaves, he might step up and go to the Vikings. Trey Lance.
Ooh, that would be cool
Trey
too.
Lance
I
and the
mean,
Vikings would be cool too.
that
And
would be another good spot.
he'd legit start there.
Yeah, you're
I'd
right.
like
That's
what,
another good
Josh
spot.
Dobbs?
Yeah, well, they had Nick
You said,
Mullins too.
yeah,
Nick
come on.
Mullins is horrendous.
If Trey Lance can't beat out either of those two, then you just gotta give it up. Then you just gotta give it up.
Yeah, if Trey Lance if he went to the Vikings and they decided to go with Nick Mullins or Josh Dobbs over him, then maybe I'd be like, he just must look horrific. That's the only
Yeah.
explanation for it. He just
No, yeah,
must look
exactly.
absurdly terrible for them to not go with
because
him. But
we know he's not gonna start in Dallas. He's QB3 right now behind Cooper Rush.
Mhm,
I think if he can just if he can get out of Dallas and just find somewhere where he can at least be QB2
mhm. At least.
and have an opportunity to play a little more and just get some ball time, like
Mhm.
get actual snaps, live reps, not with second stringers, not with third stringers, like get actual reps, then we see what we get.
Yes,
And I hope
exactly.
he's successful too. Like I'm not gonna run and be like, ah crap, I wish, I'm not gonna be like, oh, he's not like Jimmy Garoppolo fans that like hated Trey Lance for no
Oh,
reason.
made me so
I'm
mad.
not gonna be like that, but I do want to see I want to see actual game time to make an actual opinion.
Yeah. Well, that's the logical route to go. And I think it was so weird to me and it bothered me so much that there are so many 49er fans who were the Jimmy worshipers who were just hated Trey Lance. And it was I always said it, man. Trey Lance has been the most like unjustly crucified quarterback for some odd reason of all time. Like he just gets absolutely crapped on and everybody is against him and they're so willing to write him off after watching him play 3 full games. It's like mind-boggling in my opinion.
Yeah,
um
it was just I mean to to actually condemn somebody. It was bad man management by Kyle. And I mean, to make that pick in the first round and the trade for that pick, I get it because you saw the ceiling of Jimmy Garoppolo with Kyle Shanahan. With Kyle Shannon. You saw the ceiling because we see the ceiling without Shanahan
mhm. It's
and
very low.
it's not pretty high. But
Yeah, you're right.
it was just bad man management.
It
And
was.
I think man management and bad play design because who the hell runs their QB up the middle? That's just dumb.
Mhm.
Unless it's like a tush push or anything, but like that's just dumb.
Mhm.
So you injured the kid. The kid gets injured multiple times if we're being honest. Like, what are we doing? Then you don't play him. Like you kill his confidence.
Oh
And
yeah.
the Jimmy G worshippers that are like
Ugh.
dogging the kid, it's like, come on, let's be completely real for a second. I understand you get like a solid C plus from Jimmy Garoppolo, and I'm being nice right now. A
Very
solid
nice.
C plus from Jimmy Garoppolo, but like there's at least potential for
Thank you.
growth. There's at least potential, but I mean, it is yet to be seen. I would love to see it actually happen. So
Yeah.
hopefully he can get out of Dallas because Dallas it's not happening in Dallas because
No.
Dallas is Jerry Jones is nuts and he's just gonna keep Dak till Dak dies.
Oh yeah, and even if they
Not
don't
dies
keep
literally,
Dak,
but like
they
till the wheel falls off.
they have Cooper Rush, and everyone knows Cooper Rush is quarterback too there. So it's I don't know. Honestly, I don't know why they even traded for him. It really doesn't make any sense why they traded for Trey Lance, I
Yeah.
guess.
And
But
the
whatever.
Niners too, giving him to Dallas, like that
I know.
feels like sacrilegious.
It does. It's a little strange. That was a whole weird ordeal. But yeah, I mean everything you said I agree with. But I'll go back to Russell Wilson here. One other team with an opening, which I guess could probably really fit for Trey Lance as well, is the
Washington.
Commanders. Yeah, exactly. The
I
Commanders,
figured.
who, I mean, honestly, if they're honestly, the Commanders are like pretty close to last. Like if I was in the NFL,
Hmm.
I had to rank every team that I would want to play for, I think the Washington Commanders, they're like 30th
Really?
to 32nd. Oh yeah. Well, first off,
Really? Why?
first off, I don't want to be rocking those disgusting uniforms, and
Yeah.
the aura of the Commanders is gross. And I'll say it might not be as bad as like I don't know. I'd have to think really fast, but I don't know. There might be a couple other places because Washington is probably not the worst place. Washington D.C. is
Yeah, I
probably
would
not
say
the worst
Washington
place,
DC is a really nice city.
but when it comes to
The
the
franchise.
Commanders,
Yeah.
yeah, just the franchise. It's just gross.
The
But I don't know. I guess
the
if you're trying to
name
get a
bro,
go ahead.
Washington football team was cooler than the Commanders.
Dude, the
Like,
Commanders is so
be honest for
trash.
2 seconds.
Oh
Washington
yeah.
football team was probably a cooler name than the Commanders.
Yeah, dude. The Commanders sucks. It's so bad. It's such a trash name. So I guess
All
if I'm Russ, I'm like, I don't want to go there because just
like,
honestly for that reason, I don't want to be a commander.
I know it sounds really soft, but, like, they would have been so much better off being called like the Red Tails or something.
Yeah, there was a couple. The Red Hawks.
Yeah,
I
like
heard
they could
that
have
one too.
like yeah, they had options, and I feel like they went with the worst option.
They definitely
Um,
did.
I think the reason why the Commanders would be a good place to go is because again, I think from a Commander point of view, having the 2 pick,
Hmm.
you you get a quarterback to develop, and you get a win
Yeah,
now quarterback. And obviously, you're not paying him what Denver did. You are not doing that again. That is the worst trade of all time. You're never and contract of all time. You're just not doing that.
yeah.
Like that trade and that contract might be worse than Deshaun Watson's contract. It might just how it ended up for the team.
I'm not as quick to jump on the Deshaun Watson contract yet, just because honestly, I don't think he was that bad last season when he played. He's obviously hasn't looked like previous Texans Deshaun Watson since then. But last season, in the first like 4 games, I think he played of the season, he wasn't
Oh,
that terrible. So until
I'm
I see like a full season of
I'm
Deshaun, I'll
purely
call it for it.
talking. I'm purely talking contract, not on play alone, not on play involved, but like fully guaranteed the entire contract is a nuts thing to do.
True. No, you're right.
Especially
No, you're right.
in football specifically, it's a nuts thing to do. I think that if he went to Washington, the Washington Commanders have like one of the highest caps in the league.
Yeah.
Like they have a lot of money to spend, and
Yep.
they have a new GM who's from the Niners that can play with a lot of money. You have
Hmm.
the second pick. You get if I mean you get two quarterbacks. You develop one. You can start another. They learn from Russell Wilson, and they play in the NFC East of all things. So it's not again like you have a really honestly, you have a decent chance of making the playoffs. Like,
Yep.
and in if you don't, you make the wild card and hope for the best. Like, come on,
Hmm.
Dallas and Dallas and Philly made it last year. You can't knock one of them out of that.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good call. I think it's probably on the table. Like I said, there are just so many different options right now. So he'll definitely go somewhere. He's good enough to be a starter. Like I said, I mean, I still think he's going to be a good quarterback. He's not some
Wait,
garbage. Yeah. Let's hear it.
I know I said this in the group chat,
Hmm.
but
Oh, I know what
a
you're going to say.
a reunion to Seattle is not out of the not off the cards.
Well, when I first thought of that, I thought it totally was because I was like, I think it works. Like, I think he's better than Geno. They could use him. But then I was like, well, he kind of burned bridges with that franchise. But like you brought up, I mean, Pete Carroll's not there anymore. I don't know how their relationship seemed to be, but maybe it's a new staff, it's a new Russ. I don't cheap contract,
And,
solid team.
and think about this:
Possible.
all his old teammates that are either retired or moved on, they're all they're all Niners now too, so it's not like you even have, like, to deal with, like, past demons or anything like that. It's like you don't have to look over your back before saying anything. You have a new garden, so you can
Mhm.
usher your official Russell era of Seattle. So there and he knows Seattle, like, he
Yeah.
won a chip there, so it's not like, it's not like it's unfamiliar.
No, you're right. That's a very it probably could be a possibility. I
I
think it
It's a long shot. I think it's a long
yeah.
shot, but I would, like, keep it in the cards just in case.